Hello, welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend, my partner in crime, my person who's watching the Jets struggle and suffer with me, Mike Luciano. Mike, what's going on, buddy? How are you today?
Well, I had some apprehension about coming on this podcast. I didn't want to maybe injure myself or blow out my vocal cords or something like that. But now that I've been talked back into it, I think I'm ready to go. Do you see how ridiculous the Jets are?
That was good.
This is even a thing that we got to talk about. I'll get into this a little bit later when we do all the Jets stuff. I just feel so bad for Robert Saleh before we even get into this stuff because you can tell how much this guy loves football and wants to talk ball, and instead he's got to deal with this crap every single week. You can see it; it's hurting him. And we'll get into what exactly is hurting him. But first, I have a little message from our friends over at Sleeper Fantasy. Because the Jet Press is partnering with Sleeper Daily Fantasy to give users a first deposit, new users that is, match up to $100. All you got to do is use our code FANSIDED2, that's FANSIDED2, when signing up to receive your deposit match. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and scan the QR code on the screen to see if you qualify. And as always, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever it may be you get your podcasts. We're on all those sites, YouTube, TikTok, at the Jet Press for both. Make sure you subscribe there. Make sure you give this stream a like. That was very helpful for the YouTube stuff. And leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you're of the inclination, subscribe to me on Twitch and YouTube. I've been streaming a little bit there as a way to, I put the link in the description for both, as a way to unwind after watching these goddamn Jets games, which, as Justin made really an apt comparison to earlier, a couple of shows ago, it's like football from an alternate dimension because neither team, Jets nor opponent, scores touchdowns. So you just feel loopy. That's been helping me over there. So make sure you give that a subscription. But let's get back to Jets talk. We'll talk about the Zack Wilson report. That'll be the bulk of the show, but just came out fresh off the presses, off the wire. Zack Wilson, the most unkillable cockroach of a quarterback there is now back as the starter for the Jets. There's a chance he gets benched for a fourth time now in 2 years because he survived all these other benchings. Robert Saleh said Wilson is the starting quarterback. He allegedly, unless there's injury, he's there for the remaining 5 games, which are Texans, Washington, Miami, Cleveland, and New England. I don't know if I see a win in the bunch outside of maybe Washington there. This is as depressing a resolution to this season as I could possibly think. I couldn't even think of this. But the most interesting part that I really, because Zack Wilson starting a quarterback when everybody wants to make it seem like it's a Zack Wilson win, the Zack Wilson truthers are out there. We'll get into the Zack Wilson truthers later, but I'm not even going to indulge that. It's not some gotcha moment that he's better than Tim Boyle or anything like that. Cool down for a little bit. The thing that I have my head wrapping around is honestly, in my opinion, what happened with Tim Boyle. And yeah, we've had nothing good to say about Tim Boyle, not because he's a bad guy, just because he stinks at football. That's why we don't like Tim Boyle, just as a football player. But the Jets somehow thought that Tim Boyle was good enough to be a starting quarterback. They may not have thought he was good, but in starting him, they inherently said that he was the best option to win the game at quarterback against the Falcons. And then 2 days later, not even on the roster, gone, because Simeon's the backup. Brett Rypien, who they just signed from the Seahawks practice squad, who has experience with Hackett in Denver, he's now the third-string quarterback. So how in 2 days, unless maybe he was connected to this whole Wilson report, is Tim Boyle go from starter to out of a job? It doesn't make sense. No other team would operate like this. And that's saying something when there's the Panthers and all these other dysfunctional teams, New England now, Chicago, Washington to a degree. There's all these dysfunctional teams. And yet, only the Jets, who Aaron Rodgers started 87 days ago for this team, and now there's a chance they're on their 5th quarterback as Zack Wilson survives another benching. How in such rapid succession did this deteriorate?
I love how you have a counter in your head of all the days it's been since Aaron Rodgers has started. You bring this up almost every show. I love it.
Because it's not even think about how recently, I know in the grand scheme of things, this year seems like forever. Think about in the scale of months and weeks, how close week 1 was to week 13. Think about what the fan base was like between then and now.
It was 12 weeks. 12 weeks ago. That's it. I'm at a point of apathy with the Jets. I'm going to force myself to care to talk about it today, but I just want to make that clear that I'm at a point of complete apathy. I don't give a shit about what happens the remaining 5 weeks of the season. I really don't. Like I'm going to force myself to care right now, but I don't care. Okay, just know that. So let's talk about Zack Wilson and Trevor Siemian and Brett Rypien. All right, let's do this. If it was up to me, Trevor Siemian would be starting this week. Again, I don't really care. But if it was up to me, I think it makes the most sense to give Trevor Siemian this start based on his track record, based on the fact that he hasn't really had a chance. I know he played about a quarter of football this past Sunday, and it was not a very good quarter, but at least give the guy a shot to start. That would be my thinking of it. Tim Boyle obviously stinks. Stinks is not even the word. Like that is putting it so nicely. Tim Boyle statistically is one of the worst quarterbacks in recent FBS history. I mean, let alone the NFL. I mean, we talked about this on Sunday. This is a guy like we're talking about the FBS quarterbacks that make the NFL. We're talking the top 1%. He's probably in the bottom 5% of FBS quarterbacks in the last 25 years.
Justin, he was a bottom tier FCS quarterback.
Yes, he literally threw more interceptions and touchdowns at not even D1 FCS, D1A. Like, so we don't even need to waste any more breath on him. Why was he cut? Because he sucks. Why did he start? Because Nathaniel Hackett has a crush on him. I don't know, Mike. Like, I don't know. But he's gone. He's gone at this point. I don't want to talk about Tim Boyle anymore. I would have started Trevor Siemian. That would have been my thinking. The fact that they're starting Zack Wilson, I get it. I understand why they're doing it. The other reason I probably would have started Siemian is because of all the reports, which we can get into momentarily. But at least from their thinking, they think that Zack Wilson gives them the best chance to win. And I don't think that that's a terrible take overall. I'd like to see what Siemian can do. But ultimately, there's a very decent chance that Zack Wilson is better than Trevor Siemian in the year 2023. I know we've said on months that for Trevor Siemian to get an opportunity, I never said that he would guaranteed be better. In fact, I think I made it very clear that I was not positive that Trevor Siemian would be better than Zack Wilson because Trevor Siemian is also bad. But at least in his history, within the last few years, we've seen him play competent football. Also, this past summer, he lost out the backup job to Jake Browning. So it's not like he has a great recent track record, but he has some semblance of a track record. So I would have given him a shot. They're not cool, man. Like, that's fine. I like, that's totally fine with me. I'll be watching on Sunday. I can't even say rooting for them to win because I'm not at this stage. Like, I think I put this out on Twitter too. I think the nightmare scenario for the Jets is that now Zack Wilson plays the best football of his life over the next 5 weeks, and the Jets lose draft position, and then we continue to Zack Wilson discourse into the offseason, and that they probably go into next season with him as QB2. That's probably worst case scenario for the Jets right now. And I say that, like, if Zack Wilson genuinely got better, great, awesome. I'd be cool with him as QB2. But I'm not getting fooled again. Like, I'm not going to get fooled again. I saw what happened in Kansas City. That fooled me. All right. I'm not getting fooled again. I have not seen progress from him this season in any significant way. He is still a very, very, very bad quarterback. He's starting on Sunday, and that's fine. Like, I disagree, but I don't. It's totally fine.
The Kansas City game was his Matt Flynn game. Remember when Matt Flynn threw 500 yards and 6 touchdowns?
And then he got paid. And then he got paid by Seattle. Yep.
And then he got benched immediately because they picked Russell Wilson. That was quite funny.
He didn't even win the starting job, right? Didn't
he? Didn't. That was Russell Wilson's rookie year. But as Patrick Cahill says, the Tim Boyle debacle reflects very poorly on Joe Douglas. I mean, you need to tell us that, man. I mean, it's job ending. For most GMs, it would be job ending because of the situation around him. It's not, but that's where we're at. And then as Leon says, every XFL and USFL quarterback better than Boyle. They have real credentials. XFL has multiple quarterbacks on NFL rosters. That's not an exaggeration, which just makes it even more puzzling that they stuck with this guy for so long. That's what I don't get. It's how schizophrenic, for lack of a better word, this team is. Like, for certain things, starting Zack Wilson as long as they did, keeping him on the roster, leaning on guys like Randall Cobb or CJ Uzomah, who unfortunately is out for the year. I'm sorry about that, CJ, but he wasn't performing on the field. For some things, they stick with it for so long and debase themselves trying to make it work. And for other things, like, I don't know, maybe give Dalvin Cook more touches when he's playing hot or getting Mecole Hardman in the game more, they abandon it immediately. Like, there's no consistency. Which that's what it feels like the most with Gase, is that Gase never had an identity. He was just trying stuff out. Now we're in that territory where even Saleh, who we like, it feels like is just there's 20 different holes in the boat, and he's just trying everything to plug it up. But there's no plan. It's just running around like a chicken with their head cut off.
And this ultimately goes back to, we could talk about the reports now, because this is, I feel like, going to be it's been the biggest discussion of the week, obviously. Again,
in football, not just the Jets.
Yeah. And it's hilarious that this is a discussion about the Jets' second and third string quarterbacks. And like none of these guys should probably be here next year, but it's still a big story. And honestly, it reflects on the organization as a whole. We're gonna talk about the Diana Russini report from The Athletic, which, first of all, I'm probably gonna end up going on a rant about media literacy at some point. But I want to make it very clear. I don't think anybody, to my knowledge, Jets, Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers, whoever, has outright disputed any of the reporting that Diana Russini and Zach Rosenblatt have done.
Do people realize she would get fired if she made up any part of it? Like, people
don't make
made up. Like, can you please get real for a second?
People like those reporters that are that reputable, that are working for The Athletic, which is one of the most reputable reporting outlets in sports media right now, they don't make stuff up. If you believe they make stuff up, then we're not going to agree in this conversation. Like, we can't have this conversation. But the only argument against it could be like, oh, well, maybe it was misconstrued, maybe it was inflated, maybe there was something with the reporting. And sure, with a report, there's always three sides of the story. There's one person saying something, there's other people saying something, and then there's the truth. That's the old cliche. But this is what I've gathered from the reporting timeline that has been reported by Dan Rossini, what Robert Saleh has said, and what Aaron Rodgers said. This is my understanding of what happened. Zack Wilson expressed reluctance this was not a recent thing. This has happened the last couple of weeks, according to Dan Rossini, that he expressed reluctance to multiple people within the Jets building. His teammates, staff members, whoever. He told multiple people, he was very open about it, according to Dan Rossini. This wasn't a secret, that he was reluctant to play again. Aaron Rodgers then spoke to him about it, presumably to say, hey, man, this is a bad decision. You should probably play. Zack Wilson, at first, was not receptive to this. And he basically said, as Dan Rossini said, thanks, but no thanks. This is my decision. I'm sticking with it. Obviously, he changed his mind on that. What changed his mind? I don't know. Maybe he saw the leaked reports come out and he saw that people are responding poorly to this. I don't know. Maybe he just had a change of heart. Maybe someone else talked to him. I don't know. But he eventually did change his mind. He then went to Robert Saleh and said, hey, give me the ball. I want to play. That is what happened. And obviously Robert Saleh and the Jets were aware of these rumblings. Despite what Robert Saleh says publicly, it has been made very clear in reporting that the Jets were aware that Zack Wilson was reluctant to play again. That's fine. Like they were aware of that, which is probably why they had some hesitancy, and probably why they waited as long as they did to name a quarterback, because based on other reports, the Jets were leaning towards and wanted to start Zack Wilson, but they had to basically make sure that they wanted to do that, even though he was reluctant to play at first, right? And so now we're left in a situation where Wilson changed his mind. Cool. He's playing. He's starting this week. And that's that. That's pretty much my understanding of what happened. And I think there was another really important note that was dropped in that same report by Dan Rossini. I believe it was like a follow-up to that report. And this goes to the Tim Boyle thing. This explains a lot of the Jets' decision-making from this season. From what Diana said, the Jets essentially saw Aaron Rodgers going down as that was it. That was the end of their season. The Robert Saleh and the coaching staff said, that's it. We're punting on the season when this happens. So with that in mind, I am not surprised at all that they let Tim Boyle start 2 games this season, that they have gone back and forth between Zack Wilson and Trevor Siemian and whoever, that they did not make another quarterback addition, that they did not trade for a wide receiver. Any of the moves that we wanted the team to make, they didn't make because they were not planning to compete this season once Aaron Rodgers went down. Which also, if that's the case, and I'm not saying this is like 100% definitely accurate, but if that is the case, that also makes me think that maybe the Aaron Rodgers stuff, where maybe Aaron Rodgers returning was less feasible than we thought it was. Because if they believed that he had a real shot of coming back and potentially salvaging the season, this is just my thinking at this point. If they believe that and he had a real shot at salvaging their season, you'd think that they would have tried earlier in the season to make more moves and to actually compete and not say, well, Rodgers went down. That sucks. That's it for us. That's the gist of what I've got from the reporting. Ultimately, I do think it reflects poorly on Zack Wilson. I think it's clear at this point. I mean, if you want to say, oh, it's just fake news, it's false reports, whatever, you can do that. Do you, man? Like, I don't care. But like, you can say whatever you want. But I think it's pretty clear that Wilson did have reluctance to play and that he did express it openly to multiple people. Nobody has refuted that. Aaron Rodgers was pissed that the leaks came out. That's what he was saying on the Pat McAfee show. He was upset that information got out of the organization. He didn't say the information was inaccurate. He didn't say it wasn't true. So, and Robert Saleh had every opportunity to deny that as well. All Robert Saleh said was, all I know is he came to me and said that he wanted to play, which is true. That seems to be true. I'm not saying he's lying, but clearly there was reluctance on Zack Wilson's part. And I do think that reflects poorly on him. And I think that teammates, I think that future teams maybe trying to sign Zack Wilson might be hesitant about that, or maybe trade for him, because I think that it's just, ultimately what makes him special in this situation. There are plenty of guys who are not going to be here next year who might feel slighted. Hell, Alan Lazard had to hear his head coach openly tell the public after he was benched that, well, yeah, we're going to cut him in a year and a half.
But forget Lazard. You think guys like Sauce and Garrett Wilson, the best guys, you think they want to go out and play for a team that's going nowhere? They still are. Like the fact there were people defending him, like this to me looked like as easy a layup. Like the fact that there were so many defenders, it was like a 50-50 split of like, yeah, Zach, you tell him. I'm like, what's going on here? Like somebody had like, all right, great job, Zach. You do that at your job. Tell your boss I don't feel like doing what you're telling me to do. Tell me how that'll go. Or people would be like, yeah, Joe, go tell Mr. Smith that he's an ass or whatever. No, that's not how any position works. Not how any job works.
Really
a couple
quick.
Things off this report.
Really quick. Comment from Leon here. I want to push back on this because he said Wilson's reluctancy didn't last long because he lobbied to be the starter on Monday morning, unwarranted and unscheduled. Second part is definitely true. He went seemingly on his own accord to tell Robert Saleh, hey, I want to be a starter. First part's not true because based on reports, he had been expressing this for weeks, like since he was benched, that he did not want to play again. So his reluctancy lasted a while. In fact, it lasted so long that Aaron Rodgers spoke to him and he still didn't change his mind. So he was pretty dead set on this until he changed his mind. And I'm glad he changed his mind. That is a good decision. If he stuck to it and just said, I'm not going to play, like that's it. Like, I don't know if he gets another shot.
I could get hurt. Oh my God, the whininess with this guy. I am so sick. How many years have we followed sports and how many teams have you ever? I watched those KD Kyrie Nets, which was all feelings based. I've never heard a team operate on a guy's feelings or hear about a guy's feelings in a 2 or 3 year period. It blows my mind. And he's done nothing to warrant any of that. Aaron Rodgers' feelings, they hold some weight. I feel they should sign Randall Cobb. Well, maybe not, but you know what? He's Aaron Rodgers fine. Zack Wilson has had maybe 1.5 good starts out of 31 in his career. Half maybe the Titans game or that Tampa game he almost won.
Yeah, I would say Titans, Bucks, Chiefs, 3 good games.
Or at most 3 out of 30-something starts. And all we hear about is he doesn't want to do this. I don't feel this. Jeez. But a couple things going off this report. A couple of them relate to Saleh. And honestly, he's a solid defender. Like, it made me feel less confident in Saleh genuinely about some of this. Because, number one, that may have been true. Like, he came to me and asked to play. It's like, yeah, but all right, how do you not know as a coach that a potential starting quarterback has been saying for weeks he's nervous about playing? Like, that seems like something you should have your finger on a little bit. That's just me.
I think he did know. It doesn't sound like it was a secret. I think he lied. Yeah, he's gonna protect. He's not gonna tell the public and say, hey, yeah, Zach was hesitant to play. He protects his player. Robert Saleh, if he's gonna do one thing, it's protect his players. He always protects his players. Always. Even in like the brief situation with the minor criticism and stuff, like he will protect his players. He will shield them from criticism as much as he can. So I fully believe he knew.
So that's number one. Number two, it makes me feel less confident when an injury happens. I get it's Aaron Rodgers. We all, we're completely distraught when that happened. But number one, to give up that immediately. And then when you're 4-3 to still potentially have that mindset of we're not going anywhere, that's weak. And number three, you gave up after Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Well, why'd you give up? Because you had Zack Wilson as your backup quarterback? Is that why you gave up? If you had Ryan Tannehill or Gardner Minshew, would the mindset have been different? Probably. So whose fault is that? It's Joe Douglas.
I agree.
This stems every dot you can connect makes its way back to Douglas at some point.
I agree. We'll get to a few more comments here. Actually, from Leon here. He said, this is a source situation. That's where Diana's info is coming from. It's not from the GM or coach. Yeah, correct. Joe Douglas is not the one who told. Yeah, it's Joe Douglas is not the one who told Diana Rossini this. Neither is Robert Saleh. But there were multiple people clearly within the organization. Because, like, I feel like some people don't, not saying you, Leon, but a lot of people that are pushing back on this being true information don't understand how vetted this information has to be to report anything. Like you have to go through some, like jump through so many hoops, so many hurdles to get a story published on a publication like The Athletic. Like it's not as simple as, oh, look, here are a couple texts from this person. They said this. No, it's way more than that. Like when stuff like this comes out, it's going to be true or close to true. It's basically what's being reported is this was what she heard from people within the organization. Now, are those people within the organization entirely accurate about what they're saying? Nobody knows that. We don't know who's saying it, but they're clearly high-ranking people it's not like, oh, the janitor said this. Like that's not what this is. It's teammates, it's staff members, it's people in the front office. It's not Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh, but it's notable enough people. And then you said here, Aaron called the Wilson report a character assassination. That's exactly what it is. I would call it journalism. That's what I would call it. Character assassination is implying that they're trying to take down Zack Wilson. That's not what they're doing. They're doing their jobs. That's what reporters do. Like
if he said it too, it's not like it was some secret that was all clandestine and they snuck it out of there. If he's telling people and people knew about it, that's fair game.
A character assassination would be private, like information about a human being that they leaked.
What Benigno said about Robert Saleh.
That should
private text, airing out private conversation on the air. Correct. That would be character assassination, but it wasn't that.
Right. Private text messages should not be released. If Zack Wilson told somebody a specific private information about himself or somebody else, and he said this is private information, that shouldn't be leaked. What was reported was that Zack Wilson was publicly and openly saying, showing reluctance about playing to multiple people. That's not a character assassination at that point. You're just reporting what happened. You're reporting the facts and what you've gathered from your sources. That's journalism. That's reporting. That's how that stuff works. I don't think the source wants to make Zack look bad. How do you know that? I wouldn't say that. I don't know. The source is who, because first of all, we don't know how any of these conversations went. We don't know the motivations of anybody. We don't. Maybe the source did want to make Zack look bad. Maybe, as some people have speculated, I forget if you mentioned on the show, maybe the source was Tim Boyle. Maybe Tim Boyle's a rat. We've seen that thrown out a lot on social media. I'm not saying that because I have nothing against Tim Boyle, and it's just speculation, although it would be hilarious if that was true. And part of me just hopes it was true because that'd be so funny. But who knows? We don't know the motivations of these people. We don't know the motivation of the source. We don't know the motivations, I would say we do know the motivation of Dana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt, who are reporting this. They just want they're just trying to get information out there. They're trying to do their jobs. I understand that.
The craziest thing that I think the Wilson report, because again, it's empowered the Zach truthers, as we said earlier. Because number one, now that he's back, it's given them a little bit of a boost because it's like, oh, see, it did get worse. Which, all right, Zach Wilson's marginally better than Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian, who had his last good year, and his last year as a starter was 5 years ago. Like, the fact you're debating that and you're that granular, that's not a win for Zach Wilson. The fact you have to think about it, and the fact that not every stat will still go your way on that, that's not a win for that. The thing that drives me crazy with the Zach Wilson supporters, because he gets compared to Darnold a lot, which Darnold had a much better football-only case to be retained as long as he did, because he genuinely had much less than Zach Wilson, no coaching. As much as I thought those issues should not stop them from taking a quarterback, they just picked the wrong one at number 2 overall in 2021. There was at least an argument. There's not that with Wilson. The thing that's driving me crazy with the Wilson fans compared to the Darnold ones, it's not even like they're doing this for the good of the Jets. It's so personal. It's so just Zach himself. Go, Zach. You're awesome. Tell the Jets to go screw themselves. He's not. He stinks. And people don't like him. A lot of people don't like him over multiple coaching staffs and seasons. This is going to sound silly and maybe hot takey, but when they did do those Mike effing White t-shirts, the fact that they did that with Zach Wilson there, I'm not saying that tore the locker room apart or anything like that, but the fact that they were ready to move on so immediately after how many weeks was that? 9, 10? People just, I don't know what it is. I don't think he's a mean guy, but people don't like him. They just don't like him. So all these people white knighting for him. Number one, he's not gonna notice you out there. You're not gonna get anything from it. and the Jets are going to keep him. So there's really no benefit to this. And he's probably not going to get another job. If he does, it'll be as a practice squad guy for another Shanahan disciple. So they're relentless. Like it's not the fact that he can do no wrong, because every player's got stand culture. I hate that that's a thing, but everyone's got, this player can do no wrong. It's the fact that they're thinking, he can do no wrong when he hasn't done anything right. And this just feeds into it. It's driving me nuts.
I won't go as far as to say like Zack Wilson is an unlikable guy. I don't know him. I don't know him enough to say that.
Seems like he is.
I understand. Like, there's a lot of things that you can point to. Be like, oh, look, this is showing that. Look, he didn't get along with Mike LaFleur. They fired Mike LaFleur. Now he's with, I would say Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett is probably the ultimate players coach. I don't know if there's been a coach in the NFL who like bends over backwards for his players more than Nathaniel Hackett, which is probably why Aaron Rodgers likes him. But I'm not going to say that about Zack Wilson. I'm just going to say what has been reported. Like that's kind of all I'm sticking to. I want to get to a few more comments here. Leon saying Zack may have told a teammate Wilson did not express reluctance to play the coaches or executives. How do you know that? You're making that up. That's like, we don't know who he told. And I'm going to actually read exactly what Diana Rossini said in a second. John in chat said, well, everything you're talking about is speculation. No, some of it is. The part that's been reported, that's not speculation. That's been reported. And I feel comfortable enough with Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt's reporting to say that those are probably as close to facts as they can get when it comes to reporting. Diana's Leon in chat saying Diana is relaying info she got from a teammate who has an agenda against Zach. That's speculation. That is speculation. Is speculation.
That's not connecting.
You don't know that. We have no idea what that is.
Like it's fun to jokingly be like, "Oh, Tim Boyle, was the guy who actually leaked it," and like it would be funny too if that actually happened, because the timing would make sense of how, like if they found it out, if they tracked it down him, it would be funny. But that's all it is right now. It's just funny joking. Maybe this could happen like that. Like
more speculation, Leon. But Zach is not stupid enough to relay reluctancy to management assistants or head. Why?
Maybe it is. Then why is it out there?
What? Like I don't. How do you know this? Like, first of all, I wouldn't like. Stupid is a strong word. I don't know if I mean, I guess I would call it like, foolish to do something like that. But it's foolish to say it to teammates anyway. Here's what Diana Rossini said, by the way. This is what she said. And again, this is what I was saying before about how much goes into this reporting that I think the general public doesn't really understand sometimes. She was explaining that it takes a lot to get a story published. This is from her, quote, I can't just take the word or a text message or one quick phone call from just one person close to Zack Wilson or one person close to the Jets. It doesn't work like that. My sources can't be low-level people. It has to be people that are in the situation, that are close to the situation, and it has to be multiple people. And that's why I stand by reporting, because as you know, when you have all this information and the main players are aware of it, all I can do is just report what I know, and that's what I've done. The main players are aware of it. She also points that out right there, that the guys in the locker room knew about this. So this was not a secret. Clearly, if it was a secret, it would not have leaked. Enough people knew about it that it got out. Hence, like, I don't know how anybody can look at this and be like, oh yeah, he probably told one teammate that one. Like, no, like you're either, if you believe that, you are believing that Diana Rossini is making stuff up. And if you're believing that, you don't know.
Or that Diana Rossini specifically hates Zack Wilson so much, like she's going to use her position to force the Jets to cut him.
It is very clearly multiple people. And Leon saying here, if it happened with coaches or management, he wouldn't be starting. Ideally, no. And I think that's why there was a discussion. That's why there was hesitancy. That's why we didn't find out until Wednesday, because the Jets were talking through it, probably making sure the guys in the locker room were cool with it. Because that's part of why I think Simeon should be starting, because I don't know how you can start a guy who openly expressed reluctance to play. If the top players know about it and the players in the locker room know about it, you really think none of the coaches know? They're in that locker room too. That's like, it's not like they're in a separate area. They're in the locker room as well.
They're either the most aloof people ever, which might be true, or they lied and said, oh yeah, if a guy said, if we thought a guy didn't want to play, he'd be cut, and they did, and they're protecting their guys.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Saleh said he would be released. Saleh said he'd be released if he outright refused to play. He didn't outright refuse to play. He showing reluctance to play is not him telling the coaching staff, I will not play. There is a big difference between those two things. One of them is a hard stance you're taking. The other is, well, if this situation arises, I'm probably going to do this. Those are two different things. Clearly, he was leaning one way and changed his mind. That's what happened. So if Wilson told Saleh, I'm not going to play, yeah, he would have probably been released. He would not be on the team because why would you have a guy in the roster who's refusing to play for you? That's a breach of contract, if anything. But that's not what happened. And again, one more thing. I know we're kind of beating the dead horse at this point. Dan is not making it up. She ran this from Leon again. She ran with the info she got from someone. Many someones, not someone, not one individual person.
And that's why we get extra credibility because of how many of the someones.
If it was one person, literally for the fun fan theories out there, if Tim Boyle called Diana Rossini and said, hey, Diana, Zack Wilson doesn't want to play again. He doesn't want to play quarterback. She's not going to write an article about that. That's not enough information to write something. It takes weeks of gathering information from many different people within that building to report something. That's how journalism works. I'm not a reporter. I don't do that. But I understand neither are you, Mike. We're not reporters. But that's how
we're trained to report. We know how to report. If we that's how you report.
That's how you report. Like that
didn't work. No news would break ever.
Correct.
If this system didn't work like this.
And that's why there's a difference between people like Diana Rossini, who is a one of the top insiders in the NFL, I would say, and Zach Rosenblatt, who was very good at his job as well, and other low-level reporters who probably do not have a lot of sources and go off of one source. Yeah, maybe sometimes they'll be right, but a lot of times they'll be wrong. And that's why you see such discrepancy with low-level reporters with reporting information, and they're wrong a lot because they don't have as many sources, and it's harder to vet stuff like that. And I know people, and I'm going to go on a whole rant right now about media literacy. I knew this. Weren't we
supposed to be talking about Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? And now we're going to do
I don't care, man.
Journalism 101 here. Like
speaking of Aaron Rodgers, people get on Diana Rossini's ass. They shit on her, and they're like, "Hey, remember the whole wish list report?" Man, listen, all right, the whole wish list report. What Aaron Rodgers disputed, because he came out and was like, yeah, that's not right. I didn't have a wish list. It was semantics. It was semantics. Like, I'm sure Rodgers didn't go to the Jets and say, hey, definitely sign these players. And Diana Rossini never said that either. But I'm sure Rodgers was just upset that the term wish list was used. Rodgers 100%. I think everyone in this chat can agree that Rodgers 100% had input on the player acquisitions that the Jets made this offseason. If you don't think that, then you're insane, because he clearly did.
That's why we're in the mess we're in right now.
And so when Diana Rossini says, oh, this is his wish list, like Randall Cobb, I mean, Mercedes Lewis was on it. Obviously, he didn't make that move. Odell Beckham, they were very interested in signing Odell Beckham. It's not that Rodgers said definitely sign these guys, but Rodgers absolutely had input and suggested to bring those guys in. And that's all the report was stating. So Aaron Rodgers never refuted the report by Diana Rossini. So people trying to criticize her and be like, oh, like that was a false report. She was wrong about that. She's wrong about this. No, media literacy, man. Like that's not it. People should be required to take a course on media literacy in high school and college if they attend. I will die on that hill. And this is why.
If Aaron Rodgers was on this team, they're in the playoffs, number one. They got 7 or 8 wins. We don't have to educate people about the basics of reporting and sources and how to, like, when to go on the record, like things that you do in journalism school. Like, God, even in the worst Jets seasons, we never had to do this.
No,
the tank wasn't this like grueling to say. The tank was almost fun.
It was fun.
Because it was so absurd what was happening every week. The blitzing 8 on the Hail Mary.
Yeah. There have been so many times where the Jets have been so bad in my lifetime, and it was funny. Like, I've had fun watching shitty teams. I don't have fun watching this team. This sucks. Nothing that's happening is fun. It's all shitty. Like, yeah, Brian and Chad, we have nothing to root for. We don't. We really
defense is fun. Legitimately, if you like defensive football, this Jets defense is extremely fun.
But the other part of it is, oh man, look, the Jets are wasting one of the best defenses they've had in years. And I can't get that thought out of my mind. Every time I see a Bryce Huff sack, I see Jermaine Johnson balling out. I see Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter, CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams, John Frankenmeyers, Quentin Williams, whoever the hell is balling out. Every time I watch it, I go, damn, they should be in the playoffs right now. They should be competing for a playoff spot. Instead, we're stuck with Zack Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, Brett Rypien, Chris Streveler, Jamison Crowder, Randall Cobb. I don't care who you throw at quarterback. They're all bad. All right.
One last one from Leon, who switched topics now. Luke Getsy, the next passing game coordinator. Are you ready for a worse passing game than Hackett has right now? Because you would get that with Luke Getsy and the Bears.
He probably would be worse than Todd Downing, huh?
It's just what's the opposite of the Avengers?
The
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I guess like the worst.
I don't know what that is.
They were the X-Men baddies. I'm really comic book nerding out on this show the last couple of days.
Just a couple weeks in a row.
But anyway, it's like they're trying to assemble all the coordinators and coaches I hate. Downing, Hackett, Getsy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, brother.
This is what happens when I care, Mike. I was apathetic to start the show, and now I'm mad. And I didn't want to be mad. But now
I'm get even more apathetic.
Also, by the way, not mad at Leon, not mad at anyone in chat, by the way. Appreciate you guys commenting, making that clear. I'm mad at this fucking organization, man. I'm mad at this team. This goddamn team.
You want to get even more apathetic?
Let's talk about Brett Rypien.
Well, the Jets might play a fifth quarterback this year. Brett Rypien. You want to know what I did for this show? I rewatched Brett Rypien games, including the time where he beat the Jets. Remember that?
Yes,
he beat the Jets. Yeah,
two of his 4 career starts have come against the Jets. Two of his first
Thursday night game when Darnold played. Remember when Darnold had that like 50-yard touchdown run and there was like nobody else on the screen?
I do remember that. Yes,
that was in the fun tank year. So Brett Rypien, I actually got to confess, I remember like when I first started doing like as hardcore as I normally do with the draft stuff. That was Rypien's quarterback class. I think he was 2019. So that was like Kyler and Dwayne Haskins, RIP, and Daniel Jones and all that. That was his class. Very accomplished college quarterback. Again, this is not Tim Boyle. Brett Rypien in college who, by the way, comes from a very athletic family. I think his cousin actually died very young. Rest in peace, Rick Rypien. But he because he's Canadian.
Mark Rypien, of course.
Yeah, with the Canucks. Mark Rypien, his uncle, is a Super Bowl winning quarterback with the then Redskins. Who it's funny too because everybody always mentions, oh, Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. Before that happened, it was, oh well, Mark Rypien won a Super Bowl. Like that was always the thing. Well
now Brett Rypien's going to win a Super Bowl. Let's go, Brett Rypien for Super Bowl. Jets winning out. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. He's also related to Angela Rypien, who was a quarterback in the Legends Football League, formerly the Lingerie Football League.
Oh, that league.
For the Seattle Mist and Baltimore Charm for 3 seasons.
Those sound like WNBA teams.
Yeah, the Legends oh my God, you know who owns the Legends Football League now called the X League?
No.
Mike Ditka.
Oh my God. That feels wrong. I feel like
why?
I feel like there's some, I don't know. I feel like there's some weird intentions there, but we're going down a rabbit hole now.
We're going down a rabbit hole. We could do a whole podcast about the Legends Football League, though, because they have some fun teams.
Really? Can we really?
They have 8 teams. They've had a bunch. I don't know.
How do you think Tim Boyle would do in that league?
Tim Boyle? I don't know. Probably like 8 touchdowns, 14 picks, knowing his resume. That's kind of what he does,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But Brett Rypien, athletic family, and I believe he threw for around 13,000 yards in 4 years at Boise State, 90-something touchdowns, won a ton, comes to the NFL, and he's been doing the whole bounce around as a backup practice squad guy. Now, unlike Boyle, there actually is like a scouting report to have with Rypien, with positives and negatives, whereas Boyle, it was negatives pretty much. Rypien's arm is comically weak.
Yeah.
For the NFL. I mean, every single patch just floats up there. He's also really small. He's 6'2", I think he's listed at.
He's got Kenny Pickett hands.
He's got Kenny Pickett small hands. He's listed at 205. Maybe he had 15 pounds of sand in his pants. He is not 205 pounds. That's Bryce Young being 204. There is no way he's that big. So obviously because of that, he can't just make a lot of NFL throws. So what you can run is limited. That sounds bad because it is bad. That's why Brett Rypien's on the practice squad of the Jets right now. Now, if he does, through some miracle, get in, which can't be ruled out because Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian have played this year. So you can't rule it out. He actually has a weirdly good, deep accuracy. Like, I remember the Broncos game, he actually was chucking it deep, and he actually connected a little bit, and he was good with that at Boise State.
Remember that one where I think Pierre Desir got absolutely mossed by
by Judy.
And then later Pierre Desir had a pick 6. Or I think it was either before that or after that. Pierre Desir had a pick 6 in that game too. Pierre Desir, what a Jets legend that is.
Yes. I don't want to think about Pierre Desir anymore. I've had enough bad players. I don't want to think about bad defensive players too. But he actually is quite accurate on those goal balls, gets the ball out quick, and actually if you let him, the arm strength is not very good. We know that. Even on shorter plays in the pocket, he's made some tight window throws. He thinks he has an insane arm. And he actually has made a couple throws where I'm like, okay, that's backup level. Now, physically, he's so limited And we haven't really seen him play good football in a while because it was Hackett Broncos last year. And he had one start this year for the Rams, which was quite bad, and they ended up getting rid of him. So not a lot.
They Tim Boyled him. He got released like the next day.
They Tim Boyled him, yes. They Chris Glazered him.
Yeah, they boiled him.
Yeah, so there's
funny thing to say.
There's not a ton to smile about, but God forbid if something crazy happens and he goes in, I actually might feel more confident than I would with Tim Boyle, and maybe as confident as I would with Trevor Siemian.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a very physically limited quarterback, obviously, like you said. Small hands, small guy, not a great arm. I think the biggest negative, aside from that on tape, is if I remember correctly from his time at Boise State and his brief time in the NFL, throws a lot of interceptions, throws a lot of he makes a lot of plays where you're just like, what are you doing, man? Like, what's going on there? What's going on in that brain of yours? But I guess I think he's better than Tim Boyle. So that's good. That's an upgrade. There's an actual strength there with him, which I think that, even if he's physically limited, like he's got something to his game. Obviously he was undrafted, likely largely because of those lack of physicals. But it's fine. Like he's their third string now. It would take a significant, I don't even want to say that. I don't like, I want to say, I don't think we're going to see him this year, but it's the Jets, dude. Like
Trevor Siemian wasn't on the roster until week 4.
There is every chance that we see him play a game this year. Like, David Fales played in a game for the Jets a few years ago. Luke Falk has played.
He did. I forgot about that.
He played in, I think, one game or so. He did not attempt the pass, but he got sacked.
I thought he was actually going to be a legitimate quarterback.
David Fales. Where do you
I was a dumb high school kid, and I just saw the college numbers he put up, which are ridiculous.
Where did he go to school?
Oh, okay.
San Jose State. That's right. I knew it was some Mountain West school.
Yeah, San Jose State. I'm like, okay, maybe I could see it. And then I thought Luke Falk was actually going to be okay. I got fooled by the air raid numbers.
Yeah, the numbers. Like you probably what was his name? Brandon Doughty, that Western Kentucky guy.
Well, Luke Falk legitimately in college was super, super accurate, and then he just didn't have the arm to.
Yeah.
Last.
So Rypien, we're probably not going to see him play. I do want to actually really quick. I know we're talking about Brett Rypien. This is a good question, and I actually wanted to talk about this. It's a question from Leon in chat. It's about Zack Wilson's future, and I did want to talk about that. I know I'm kind of derailing because we were just talking about Brett Rypien, but I feel like this is more important.
It's all related.
So he said, Leon in chat, if this will load on the screen, said, serious question. Is there any chance that Zack Wilson returns next season with the Jets if he ends the season on a high note because of his relationship with Rodgers? As much as I would like to say no, yeah, I think there's definitely a chance. I think the biggest obstacle with Zack Wilson is that his entire salary next season is guaranteed. It's like over 11 million, which is a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a backup quarterback, let alone somebody you probably going to hopefully bring back as a third string. So I don't really think the only way the Jets would cut him is if they think he's a complete distraction, because cutting him is the exact same as keeping him on the roster. There's the same amount of dead cap if you cut him as there be cap space, taken up if he's on the roster. So actually, I guess, can you restructure rookie contracts? You can. Yeah. Cause I think they did it with Bryce Hall. Maybe they would restructure his contract or something and push some of that dead cap to 2025. I could see something like that happening. Obviously in a perfect world, you'd find somebody to trade him to that could maybe take on some of that salary. I imagine the Jets would have to eat a good portion of it, but you could probably find somebody, if he plays well over the last few games, that could take that salary. But I agree, because of that last part that you said, because of his relationship with Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers says, hey, I want him back and I want to develop him, they might not have a chance. But God damn it, if they go into next season with Zack Wilson as QB2, I'm so done. I'm just done.
You know what? At least this year we're saying give everybody a mulligan because Rodgers got hurt and Zack Wilson's in. Now you don't have a mulligan because now you know that Rodgers can go out early in the year. Like now you got to have an actual plan. So if it happens again, I'm not giving solid to get him a real quarterback thing.
And then, that's what's insane about it is everybody knows, even if this regime comes back next season, which the assumption is that they all will be here, everyone knows there's basically a playoff mandate. I don't know if Woody Johnson will outright say there is a playoff mandate, because has he ever done that? I don't think he's ever done that.
He doesn't care about. Didn't he say Mitt Romney winning the election would mean more than any Jets Super Bowl ring? I think he said that. So that's the kind of guy Woody is.
Well, I don't know about that part, but I do know that he's probably not going to come out and say that the Jets definitely need to make the playoffs. But we all know that that's the case. The Jets need to make the playoffs next season. So if they go into next year with Zack Wilson as their undisputed, definite QB2, they are making their own bed. They already made it this offseason, but they'd be making their own bed twice in consecutive seasons, seeing how bad things went this year. Like, because there's no excuses. If Rodgers gets hurt to get hurt again next year, there's no mulligan again. Like, they have to win next year, whether Rodgers is playing or not. So they have to have a better plan at backup quarterback. Obviously, it would not be ideal to have your third string quarterback making $11 million on your roster and then signing another backup quarterback for maybe $4 million. If you're getting a good backup quarterback, $5 million, something like that. That would be a lot of money to be paying for your quarterback, which is why I could see them just restructuring his deal and pushing dead money to 2025. I mean, fuck, what does Joe Douglas care? He's not going to be here next year if they lose anyway. So why does he care about 2025 cap space? So I could see that happening. But ideally,
all I know about Zach is there's a sucker born every minute for trade. What did Darnold get? A second, a fourth, and a sixth?
He did. Well, they got to find another Panthers. Dude, the Panthers handling of the quarterback position over the last 8 years is probably worse than the Jets, and that's saying so much.
No. Well, they had Cam for some of that, so you can't say.
All right, whatever. After good Cam went, last 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Because at least I'd say the Jets tried to when did the Panthers draft Bryce Young? Before that, they didn't draft another quarterback in the first round, right? I'm not making.
Well, they had Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, they had Teddy. They had Cam. They brought back Cam when he was shit.
And Darnold and Baker.
Everything with the Bryce Young and maybe losing out on Caleb Williams this offseason, that tanks them a lot. Maybe it's not worse than the Jets. I don't know if anyone would be worse.
Did you hear though? Did you see that report that came out about them today?
Yes, the Hunger
Games. Basically, the coaches.
Yeah.
There was always a criticism that Bryce Young dropped too deep and it was drops at Alabama, which that happened.
Yes.
And then the owners were saying, no, he needs to drop back deep more after the coaches were saying, don't. I'm like, oh, this is a shit show.
It is a mess. Tepper.
And we're a team that started Tim Boyle and then cut him 2 days later.
For Jets fans thinking the Jets are the only dysfunctional organization out there, they're not. That's not an excuse, but there are other dysfunctional teams.
Here's truly the worst part of this year. The Patriots just allowed 10 points in 3 straight games and lost all of them. I can't even enjoy the fact that my mortal enemy is finally the worst team in the league, both almost in record and in watchability, maybe outside of the Jets. Actually, you know what? Including the Jets, because at least the Jets scored some points. The Patriots did not in their last game. I can't even fully enjoy this because A, the Jets are almost as bad, and B, they're going to get either Caleb Williams or Drake May.
Yeah.
They can't, even when the Jets.
You're not wrong.
Even when the Patriots are bad, the Jets can't win over them.
You're not wrong.
So disgusted.
A comment here from Josh Kerr in chat. Actually, I think this is a fair discussion. I think backup quarterbacks are going to get paid more from this point on. This season proves how valuable they are. Maybe.
Purdy?
Yeah. I think there's a good chance that you could see backup quarterback salaries increase, and they probably should because they are very valuable, very important. My dream for the Jets, and I said this right before we started recording, Mike, my dream backup quarterback for the Jets next season is Ryan Tannehill. That's who I think it should be. Ryan Tannehill should be the backup quarterback. It makes so much sense. Assuming Todd Downing is still here, boom, you got the connection there. Keith Carter was with him in Tennessee as well. It makes too much sense. And he would be a great backup quarterback. Tannehill is a free agent in the offseason. I would like to see the Jets pay him legit $7 million to be the backup. I mean, maybe he gets an opportunity to be a bridge quarterback somewhere, but in a perfect world, in an ideal world, that is exactly who I'd want as my backup quarterback next season. I think if Rodgers were to go down, if he goes down for an entire season, that's brutal. If that happens again, this team, the team's already cursed, but they'd be even more cursed. But if he just misses a few games, misses 5 games, say, I'm very confident with Ryan Tannehill coming in and playing competent football.
Speaking of the Panthers, maybe Andy Dalton?
Is he a free agent? Was he signed to a
1-year deal?
Was it a 1-year deal? Because absolutely. If Dalton is probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL right now. I don't think that's a hot take. It's a 2-year deal.
He's better than their starter.
He's under contract next year. Unfortunately.
Ah, crap.
This is bizarre. Oh, okay. So this is so funny. They have an out in his contract after the season, but if they take it, they're taking on more dead cap than his cap hit is next year. The reason for that is because they restructured his contract and they spaced out dead cap for the next 4 years after that, or 3 years after that. Really weird.
Please just fire Fitter. Can him and Joe Douglas go together?
That is such a weird situation. So I don't think Dalton will be available. Tannehill should. I would like to sign Tannehill.
We'll get into this now that we're going to talk about the Texans game too. Leon, why are the Jets so awful at running the ball? They've been bad the last 2 months. They don't have a quarterback.
Their O-line sucks.
Wilson, Boyle, Simeon, 6-7 man boxes every single play.
Yeah.
You
they're all
try
like
and run the ball when there's 7 guys and 5 blockers.
Leon in that comment did say Keith Carter has to go. Yeah, I would like that. They're not going to do that, but I don't think he should have been on the team to begin with.
Nobody's going.
Yeah.
Because Rodgers.
Yes. If anything, they'll make minor offensive coaching staff tweaks, which maybe that is Keith Carter. Because I don't think Rodgers gives a shit about Keith Carter. Honestly, I don't think he has any personal connection to him. So if they do make any changes, it'll be Keith Carter. But also, for as bad as the offensive line has been, it would be pretty brutal to fire Keith Carter after like one of the most unprecedented injury streaks in recent NFL history for the offensive line. Like that would be pretty. I don't think he deserves a job in the first place. But that's a tough sell. It's like firing a QB coach after Rodgers got down and you're working with this. It's like, well,
that's the same thing we're doing with Saleh, right? We're giving him a mulligan, right? I guess then the argument would be if you give Saleh a mulligan, you got to give everybody else one.
Well, Saleh's defense is balling. I'm saying like specifically a position coach who loses like all their players. It's like that's pretty tough to say to fire him.
But no matter who is on this skeleton crew of increasingly beat up Jets, they still have to physically go play games.
And you know what else they have to do, Mike? They have to listen to this ad read. They have to listen to this ad read. I'm gonna do right now by Sleeper. Yes, they have to use Sleeper because Sleeper is great. Again, they're not paying me to say that. I'm paying us to say that. I genuinely use Sleeper every day, probably every day. It's the only fantasy app that I use. It is a great app. Now, let me do the ad read. The Jet Press is partnering with Sleeper Daily Fantasy to give new users a first deposit match up to $100. That's a lot of money. Make sure to use our code FANSIDED2. That's FANSIDED2, the number 2. It's on the screen when signing up to receive your deposit match. Please remember to always game responsibly. Scan the QR code on the screen to see if you qualify. Mike, let's talk about the Texans game. I don't know what we're going to say, but let's talk about it.
All right, I'm going to operate as if the Jets have a real quarterback. They don't because just for the sake of entertainment purposes.
Okay, sure.
Because if we do that, then we could just say, well, it doesn't matter because of the quarterback. So to avoid that
was my plan.
Let's at least look at it like a game.
Okay, that my plan was to say that, just so you
know. So the Texans, I've said this before, DeMeco Ryans might win Coach of the Year, and CJ Stroud's unbelievable, which he is. I love watching CJ Stroud. The Texans are they use the same hiring process that brought the Jets Robert Saleh.
Yep.
49ers defensive coordinator, and they hire the pass game coordinator to be the offensive coordinator. Now, people hate Saleh, and people hated Mike LaFleur before they fired him. And you know what? Texans are the exact same thing. The Texans got CJ Stroud. The Jets got Zack Wilson.
Yeah.
Zack Wilson was so bad, multiple human beings got fired and had to move their families and mess up their kids' lives. That's how bad Zack Wilson was. That's what he did to Mike LaFleur, who, by the way, doing pretty all right with the Rams.
He also just got extended by the Rams mid-season. He got extended his first season mid-season.
God, that was such a stupid move.
He's doing pretty good for himself.
I remember how when he had every other quarterback who wasn't Zack Wilson, and they didn't win every game, but like they were throwing for 300 yards.
What's funny is
Joe Flacco threw for 317 and 4 touchdowns against the Browns.
Josh Johnson threw for over 300 yards off the bench. Like he even start the game and he threw for over 300 yards.
Remember Mike White 400 yards his first career game ever against the team that went to the Super Bowl? Remember that?
I do find it funny how the narrative about Mike LaFleur has seemed to shift because for the longest time this year, this entire year, if you mention Mike LaFleur's name, you'd get shit on and be like, oh, he sucks, he's awful. Now, if you mention him, it's like, man, I wish we had Mike LaFleur still. I wonder whose first podcast it was. Like who is the one? Who are the ones? I mean, obviously we were the only ones. I'm not going to say that, but we were on our first show. We were literally defending Mike LaFleur, and now here we are, December 6th, almost a year later, and we're still defending Mike LaFleur.
Because it's because he was the 49ers passing game coordinator and run game coordinator that a bunch of them have been hired for OC stuff. Mike McDaniel, and pretty much everyone has either been great or at least been okay, and the offense has been good.
Yep.
All the Shanahan McVay guys. You mean to tell me the Jets got the one guy who wasn't, and his brother's great, Matt LaFleur? You mean to tell me the Jets got the one guy out of 10 who stunk? Like, come on, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's how the Texans have set themselves up. Now, they're coming into this game a bit wounded because there's no Tank Dell for the rest of the year, and unfortunately broke his leg, which is a shame. But I'm looking at this Texans team. If you take Stroud out of it, still, I don't think they're that amazing. Like Nico Collins is having a great year. I still think he's more like a high-end wide receiver too.
Hey, that is my fantasy wide receiver too. Don't you disrespect him like that. How dare you? On the Sleeper app, use the code right there.
I started my year 6-2, and then Jefferson got hurt, and I lost 5 in a row. But anyway,
Sorry,
I still think Collins is a wide receiver too. Dell's out. Robert Woods is having an okay, not amazing year. Dalton Schultz is above average as a tight end, but he's certainly not like a difference maker. He's just really good. Their offensive line is not good. Like people say, oh, the offensive line for the Jet. Like the Texans were playing their 4th string center at one point. You know what happened in that game? C.J. Stroud threw 5 touchdowns to beat the Bucs. Like, I'm not saying that the quarterback always has to overcome some stuff. I can name 4 or 5 guys off the bat that are suffering from coordinator issues and line issues and play calling issues and skill position around them issues. A lot of them make it work. CJ Stroud is obviously insanely talented and he's making it work, but the personnel is just not great. Now, if there's an avenue to disrupt CJ Stroud, I will say the offensive line's still banged up. Titus Howard is out. There's Tunsil, but again, we said before, sometimes the Jets have one good offensive lineman and the line still stinks. The offensive line, if you have one really amazing guy, you could still get to the other 4. The Browns had Joe Thomas be amazing for however long, and they always had bad offensive lines because one guy can't just cover up for everything. So because of that, I think there's a real path to pressuring Stroud, using all the pass rushers to get after him. Like, you legitimately can do that because for all of Stroud's positives, and he's certainly great at creating out of the pocket. That was the big criticism of him, was can he create out of structure? Yes, he can. But he's not like a 4-5 insane athlete. So if you get him off his spot, I think there's a chance to maybe coax some rookie mistakes out of him.
Yeah, I think we've seen that a little bit from Stroud in the last 5 weeks because he was nearly perfect to start the season as far as turnovers and interceptions went. But we've seen some more of those mistakes as the weeks have gone on. It's fun looking at this roster too because there's so many revenge game narratives. I know the obvious one is Adrian Amos because the Texans just signed him, and I do honestly expect him to play. I know he just got there, but it's DeMeco Ryans' scheme. It cannot be it's very similar to Robert Saleh's scheme. So I imagine it's not going to be that significant of a transition process. But it's not just Amos. Talking about that offensive line, George Fant's playing right tackle for them this year, and he's been all right. He's been pretty good. Jets definitely can use him. Blake Cashman. Blake Cashman's the other one. Blake Cashman is balling. Straight up balling. One of the best linebackers in football this season balling. That's not an exaggeration. He's been great for them. So it's going to be really fun seeing him back. I know he was solid loved Cashman. He was
Who did the Jets get with the pick they got for Blake Cashman?
What did they get? It was a 7th round. What did they trade him for?
I think it was like a 5th or something like that. And at the time, we were like, they got a 6th.
It was definitely a swap. It was definitely a swap or something. They didn't get a straight up pick from him.
They got a 6, and then they traded it for to the Packers, and they got Anders Carlson. So,
who's been bad? Wait, they got a straight up 6 for Cashman.
They got a straight up 6. At the time, I remember that was viewed as a huge win.
That is, obviously now he's playing well, but I think that's a pretty good win. I'm surprised that they got that. Another one.
You know what? They sent that pick because that was in the Rodgers trade. That was the 6th in the Rodgers trade.
So Blake Cashman helped the Jets get Aaron Rodgers.
And look where we're at now. Thanks, Blake.
There you have it. And only one of them's having a Pro Bowl year, and the other's hurt. And guess who is who? Not who you'd think. Because Cashman got hurt every year. Rodgers hadn't missed their game in 8 years. And one of them's on IR, and the other is having a Pro Bowl season. Who the hell saw that coming?
Why even try to win? Why even try to improve? They'll just blow their Achilles out.
Anyway, Sheldon Rankins is also there. That's a fun one. He's having a good season as well. So there's quite a few revenge game narratives. This is a good Texans team. I know CJ Stroud is great, and that's part of the reason they're having so much success. But I do think there's some talent on this roster. Aside from that, we already mentioned Cashman. I think Will Anderson's come along really nicely in the last few weeks. He's coming off a 2-sack game this past week. I think we're finally starting to see why he was such a hype prospect. He's showing it more. Derek Stingley's missed a lot of time, but he has 4 interceptions in 6 games. And I think he's having a second-year leap for him, even though he's missed some time with injury, which that sucks. Obviously that was an issue with him at LSU, and it's kind of becoming an issue already in the NFL, but he's still a good young player. And now that he's back and healthy, that's a big get for their defense. It does suck having Tank Dell out, but I like Nico Collins. He's a very good player. Robert Woods is still a reliable receiver. Noah Brown has made some plays this year, which is fun.
Jersey, shout out.
There you go. And it's been fun to see him. This is a good Texans team. They are a good team. I do believe, I think they're going to be a playoff team this year. I do believe they will be a playoff team. Especially with the injuries to guys like Burrow. The Steelers do not have a quarterback. They didn't really have one before Kenny Pickett got hurt. Now they definitely don't. The Bills are, they're 6-6, but I think they have a 15% chance of making the playoffs. It's kind of
look at who they got to play. It's like the Chiefs, the Niners, the Cowboys.
It's crazy.
Brutal
So I
schedule.
guess, I mean, talking from a Texans perspective, this is obviously a must-win game for Houston. They cannot lose this game. Like, this is a conference opponent. They cannot lose this game, especially because it'll also come down to like conference or common opponents, because they're playing they might have a tiebreaker with the Bills, and the Bills have played the Jets. So if the Texans win this game, they'd have the tiebreaker over the Bills in that, I think, if they had the conference record. But anyway, it's an important game for them. It's a must-win game. I don't expect them to take the Jets lightly because of that. Also because everyone knows how good this defense is. Ultimately, again, it just comes down to the fact that the Jets don't have a quarterback. And unfortunately...
And if you look offensively too, though, like, I know that Sauce Gardner is better than Derek Stingley, but oh my God, how could the Texans have done that? Like, that narrative doesn't exist anymore. Stingley's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. I would not be surprised if
he's only played 6 games. I don't know if he's played 6 games. I don't know if he's making a Pro Bowl. The interceptions are there. I just don't know if he's played enough to make it. But I think if he was healthy...
All right, let me rephrase. He's played at a Pro Bowl level this year.
And I think he will be a Pro Bowler in the future. I agree with you.
Right. Now, I say all that to say, the reason we were so fuming last week was because Garrett Wilson was open, not an exaggeration, trying to be funny. Literally almost every play he was wide open, and Tim Boyle didn't throw it to him. I don't know if that's going to happen in this game, because they're probably going to have Stingley on him for most of the game. So because of that, now Zack Wilson, who for all of the criticism we had of Zack Wilson for years and years and years, you could go and we could give you chapter and verse about how much he stinks. To his credit, he will force feed Garrett Wilson the ball.
Yep.
I will give him that. He will try to get the ball to Garrett Wilson. Now, I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that in this game, because he's going to have one of the best young corners in the league in Stingley on him. So what does that mean? Well, that means Nathaniel Hackett's going to have to be creative. And do I have hope that he'll do that? No. But again, I almost feel bad for him, because I thought the first half specifically, second half a little bit, but mostly the first half too, against Atlanta, he called a terrific game. Guys were wide open all the time. There was a flea flicker. There were actual creative plays that I hadn't seen before this year. I'm like, all right, he's got something. And then guys are wide open, and Timmy Boyle didn't throw it to him. Like, Hackett can't physically go out there and play quarterback and make him throw the ball. So maybe he got enough of a jolt where I'm like, okay, he can get something else going right now. Somebody's got to step up. Maybe it's Xavier Gibson, who's looked okay. I think the hype around him is just kind of whatever. I think he's a complete also-ran, but he actually has made some plays in the last couple games. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll be him. Maybe it'll be Ruckert. Got to be somebody, because Garrett Wilson is going to get some plays, but he's not going to have 10 catches for 120 yards because Stingley's too good.
He is. I do think Garrett Wilson will end up getting his, but I agree with you. I'm looking at the roster. A couple more reunion games or revenge games, whatever you want to say. Neville Hewitt is still in Houston. He's been with them the last couple of years, I believe. So that's fun. And of course, how can we forget the god of all kickers, Matt Amendola, is still their kicker. I'm pretty sure he is still their kicker.
I thought he was like an injury replacement. Isn't Fairbairn?
Yeah. Fairbairn's hurt still. No, he's not coming back.
Oh, he is?
Is he still hurt? He's still hurt. No, I didn't hear anything about him coming back. Now I got to make sure. Kaimi Fairbairn is, I don't think his window's open yet. Yeah, no, he's not active. Yeah, he's still hurt. So another one there. It's really fun.
Brian in chat says Jordan Jenkins still a Texan. No,
he's gone. I'm very surprised.
He's honestly one of the all-stars of the Todd Bowles, Gase awful year. Jordan Jenkins saw a lot of shit with the Jets.
I'm genuinely surprised that Jordan Jenkins did not have an NFL career after the Jets. He played he played 1 year in Houston where he was a backup, and that was it. That surprises me, because I thought he was
not bad.
He wasn't bad. I don't think he was a starting edge rusher on a lot of teams, but he was a fine player. I think he didn't have a true strength. He was, I would say, an above average run defender, and then a not great pass rusher who didn't really have. He wasn't a great athlete. I feel like that might have been why. But to
use another JJ comparison, he's if Jermaine Johnson didn't work. He would be Jordan Jenkins.
Yeah. I think I agree. I think Johnson was a more refined pass rusher in college, but. Yeah, I can see that comparison. Both, southeastern schools, not SEC, but Southeastern.
He got screwed because he had to pick 48 as his number. I knew immediately that you can't have a pass rusher.
Hey, Bryce Huff's 47. How dare you? Bryce Huff's 47, and he's great.
They got to cool with the numbers. That Jadeveon Clowney's wearing 24 as a defensive end. This is not my NFL. The other Kyle Fuller was playing cornerback. He was wearing 17. This is not my NFL.
isn't there an edge rusher who wears 9? Am I making this? There's an edge rusher.
Matt Judon does.
Matt Judon, thank you. That's literally exactly what I was thinking of.
I'll at least accept that 99 he used to wear to 9. Jason Pierre-Paul wore number 4. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said that, but I believe some quarterback actually said that because of the number change. Like, I made fun of Tom Brady for that. Apparently, a lot of quarterbacks have said because linebackers are wearing like number 12 now and not all like 54, 56, that it's actually confusing people.
Yeah. Well, also then you have guys who are like 210 pounds playing linebacker, and it's like, well, wait, is that guy a safety? What is he? What is this guy doing? Like, you also have that. You see a 210-pound guy wearing number 22 in the box. You're not thinking that's the Mike linebacker, but it totally could be. Like, you have no idea.
I'll give Matt Rule credit. I remember Zack Wilson's first game against the Panthers. Shaq Thompson wore 54 his whole career. Yeah. And then on game day, they changed his number to 7 to like screw with Zach.
I remember that.
I'm like, all right, that's cool. Well, fair, well played.
I remember that. All right. Are we going to do a prediction? I'm sorry. I was just looking at, like, it's fun really quick looking at this D'Amico Ryan's defense and just seeing how many former Jets and 49ers are on there. Like,
they're all so similar.
Yeah. Like, it was like, he's got Jimmy Ward there as well. He's got Kerry Hyder, who was also a Jet, by the way, but he was known with the Niners. He's played under Saleh with the Niners, but I believe he was a Jet for a brief period of time. I don't think he played a game. So many former Jets, so many former 49ers. It's very fun. Derek Barnett, who might as well have been a Jet, considering how many times he was rumored to go there. So many players. But anyway, let's do our predictions, Mike. I'll start with you because I don't want to do this. But what's your prediction?
Texans 21, Jets 13. Stroud is good enough where I think he'll break through the impenetrable defense a little bit. And I got to give credit. Shout out Bobby Slowick.
He's been great.
He's going to be a coach pretty soon. I feel like he's going to be if he plays well this game, or if he coordinates well this game, I should say, excuse me. There's going to be a lot of – it's always fire Saleh, hire Ben Johnson. After this game, it's going to be hire Bobby Slow. I think he needs another year as a coordinator, but he'll be a head coach very soon. So he'll be creative enough to outduel Nathaniel Hackett, not very hard. I think Wilson – here's what I think will happen too game plan-wise. I think because of everything that's happened with Wilson, I really think they're going to go Chiefs level and just say F it and do go balls all day. Because literally, there's got nothing left to lose. Like, Zach's not going to be back. They know the season's lost. Just throw it 45 times. And I think just through the laws of probability, unless the Josh Freeman Vikings Monday night game happens, if you remember that, where he was like 19 of 55 or something.
Yes.
Unless that happens, I feel like Wilson's going to have 1 or 2 big plays, and that'll get him in the end zone. But Zach Wilson's not going to go toe-to-toe with CJ freaking Stroud and beat him. If he does, then the Texans are going to be in the playoffs because they can't win this game. They're not a playoff team.
It was very funny to hear Robert Saleh say today that Zach's at his best when he's just like, F it, whatever. And they
when there's no pressure. Yeah, that's how most people are. Yeah.
Meanwhile, I feel like they coach him to do the exact opposite. I feel like the entire Jets coaching staff has coached their quarterbacks to do the exact opposite this season. So it's funny to see that. Ultimately, we're just kind of giving a variation of the same score every week. I feel like that's what we're doing. I appreciate your scores in chat. Brian in chat. This is funny. I want to put this up. Zach throws his first career pick 6. That's crazy. He's never thrown a pick 6. Is that true? I didn't realize that. That's
probably because he's been so inaccurate. It's hard for him to throw interceptions.
It's so bad that we're surprised about a third-year quarterback.
I literally believe that. Sometimes his inaccuracy has saved him from interceptions on bad decisions.
I think you're not wrong on that. I don't think you're wrong. Brian.
Well, I remember Patrick Dowdy of like Roto Sports was talking about like how bad Zack Wilson is compared to Tim Boyle. And I came up with the line there when I was replying to him. I said, he's so bad at reading the field that he can't throw interceptions.
Who's Zack Wilson?
Yeah. Like he's not even good enough at reading the field to make the wrong decision and throw it to the guy. Like sometimes he doesn't even see the guy. That's the level we're on.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Just to finish reading Brian's comment, he said, Zach throws his first career pick 6, visibly gives up on the play before making any attempt at a tackle, takes off his uniform and strolls to the tunnel. So he just basically goes Antonio Brown. That would be very funny. What would be so funny about that too is you'd have probably 30% of people on Jets Twitter being like, I don't blame him. Good for you, Zach. Good for you. You do you, buddy. Stand up. Stand on business, man. That's what you get. You get like 20, 30%. Honestly,
I love saying stand on business in that like nerdy voice. That's
stand on business,
Oh my God.
That's what you get a lot of people saying that.
For no benefit. It's not gonna take you to dinner or anything.
No.
Just to debase yourself because you have a humiliation fetish or something.
Oh my God. What is my
Chet Press after dark again?
Yeah, we're an hour and 10 minutes. We're in. This is when we get to that territory.
Yeah.
What's my prediction? I'll say 24-9. I'll say they don't score a touchdown. I'll say they get in field goal range 3 times and they kick 3 field goals that they still can't find the end zone. Or maybe Greg Zuerlein missed another extra point. That'd be funny. But I'll say that they get 3 field goals and they just can't find the end zone because that's Nathaniel Hackett for you. 24 seems reasonable. Jets defense plays well enough in the first half and then eventually gives up in the second half when they realize that their offense can't score points. So 24-9, that's what we'll say.
Luppy, Zack Wilson throws for 275 and 2 touchdowns, and we're talking about him for a future. No, know that'll happen.
I love the no at the end. Yeah, honestly.
Every time that everybody's officially ready to bury him, like even the Wilson truthers, that's when he saves his ass. Like he's done that like 2 or 3 times.
Interesting note here, right at the end. Breece Hall did not practice today with an ankle injury. And notably, I don't believe Robert Saleh said anything about that when speaking to the reporters.
What do you have 20 yards on 11 carries the last game? I mean,
well, because Saleh said Rodgers obviously not practicing. John Franklin Myers had an ankle injury, and Brownlee, I believe, also had an ankle injury. They're not practicing, but Breece Hall he did not mention. So the fact that he did not practice with an ankle injury, also different than the hamstring he had last year or last week.
I'll go play running back at this point. I'll probably get snaps over a band.
Maybe. Yeah, I was going to say, maybe we'll get a Ivana this week, but it'll probably just be like 30 carries for Dalvin Cook. 30 carries. They're not even run 30 offensive plays. What am I talking about?
This is the worst fucking timeline. All right. Now, thank you for indulging our deep dive into the worst timeline and how bad things are with the Jets. We'll be back on Sunday again to talk about what is probably going to be another loss. They're 6th in a row against the Texans, barring some act of God. So for all of the Jets analysis post-game and not post-game like we do with the weekly podcast, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, wherever it is you get your podcasts. We're on all those sites, YouTube and TikTok at the Jet Press for both. Make sure you give the stream a like. Make sure you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Justin, what another not crazy week in Jets fandom, huh? Aren't things just so stable?
Once we're done with this podcast, I'm going to go back to apathy. And I'm going to be peaceful again. I'm going to live in peace. And I'll be cool with it. And then
it's a very Buddhist way of watching the Jets.
And then one person's going to say something on Twitter, and it's going to piss me off again. Earlier today, somebody told me that Tim Boyle. They were like, "You wanted this. Tim Boyle's been a perfectly good QB2 in his career. You wanted him to play in that look." And I'm like, "Perfectly QB2 for who? QB2 for who? The lingerie?
Is he QB12 for anybody?"
I don't even think so. I don't think he's QB12. Chris Streveler might be better than Tim Boyle.
What was their last name on Twitter? Boyle. That might have been his mom.
No, I'm pretty sure it was like letters, numbers, it was that kind of handles.
Oh, it was him. That was his burner.
It was Tim Boyle's burner.
That was him, yeah.
I love even in his wildest dreams on his burner account, he's still like, I'm a QB2.
He's realistic.
I'm a backup quarterback. That's really
like, you know how kids dream about winning the Super Bowl? He's like, maybe I could bounce around and throw 45 touchdowns in my career. He didn't even dream about the Super Bowl.
He throws 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions at UConn. He's like, the dream's still alive. I'm gonna get there one day.
And it worked.
Here he is living his dream. Good for Tim Boyle. I'm all about people getting their money. Chase that bag, dude. Get your money.
Hall of Fame scammer, this guy.
Do whatever you're doing that keeps getting you paid because it's clearly
him and Zack Wilson would be good cult leaders because they can get people to believe in them for doing nothing very easily.
Zack Wilson would be the funniest. I don't mean this as an insult. He'd be the funniest looking cult leader. Like he looks like he's 16. That'd be like imagine me as a cult leader. This would be so funny. Like wouldn't that be hilarious? Or you like we're not cult. Like we don't look like cult. I don't know what a
like I like how you had to deny it. Like we're thinking of it.
I think I'm just thinking of like Charles Manson, right? He was a cult leader. That was.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Okay.
And other things.
Yes. We're an hour and 15 minutes, and we're talking about Charles Manson. Anyway, it's time to wrap up. Really quick plug. I haven't done this before, but I had an interview come out with Alex Anzalone of the Detroit Lions a few weeks ago. That's on the Stack in the Box YouTube channel. If you want to check that out, that's affiliated with Fansided as well. I have another one coming up this week. I believe it's coming out Thursday, but don't quote me on that, with San Francisco 49ers defensive lineman Eric Armstead. That's going to be cool. He's an awesome dude, Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. So that's going to be fun. A few of those up on the Stack in the Box YouTube channel if you want to check those out. But anyway, until next time, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike That's Mike. You can follow him on Twitter by Mike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter Justin T. Fried. Follow Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download Jet Press Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Google, Spotify, Apple, Overcast. You got it. Also check us out on YouTube and TikTok. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. You guys know what to do. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and unfortunately, following every single Jets game. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I have been Justin Fried. That has been Mike Luciano. We will see you guys next time.
Return of the Zack. Set to the beat of Return of the Mac. Let's hope that this actually doesn't make us want to gouge our eyes out like Tim Boyle did.